My beloved child. Do not move past this moment too quickly. Something has been stirring beneath the silence, something your eyes could not see and your heart could only sense in fragments. You may have wondered why certain memories have been returning without invitation, why an old feeling suddenly became heavier, or why a name you tried not to think about found its way back into your mind at the strangest hour. Pause here, because what you are about to hear was meant to reach the part of you that has been searching for an explanation. There is a goodbye forming in the heart of someone deeply connected to you, but before you let fear write the ending, listen carefully. The goodbye they are considering is not as simple as walking away. There is something behind it they have never told you, and when you understand what has truly been happening inside them, the silence between you may look completely different. For longer than you realize, your soulmate has been carrying a conversation they never had the courage to finish. They have rehearsed words when no one was listening. They have imagined what your face might look like if they finally admitted everything. They have opened messages and closed them again. They have reached moments when one small act of courage could have changed the direction of everything, yet something inside them pulled back. You interpreted some of that distance as indifference. They feared you would. But the truth is stranger and more tender than that. Their distance did not begin because they stopped feeling. In many ways, it began because they felt too much and did not know how to carry those feelings without exposing the parts of themselves they had spent years hiding. There is a difference between someone leaving because love disappeared and someone stepping toward the door because they have convinced themselves they are no longer welcome. That difference matters now. Your soulmate has been standing emotionally between those two realities, trying to decide which one is true. They have asked themselves questions you have never heard. Do I still matter to them? Did I wait too long? Would my honesty heal anything, or would it only reopen something they worked hard to close? What if I tell them everything and discover I imagined the connection? What if I stay silent and lose the one person I never truly stopped carrying? These questions have not been passing thoughts. They have become a private storm. And there is one question that frightens them more than all the others: what if you have already learned how to live without them? That possibility changed something inside them. It did not make them angry. It made them quiet. There was a moment recently when they realized they could no longer assume that you would always remain emotionally available while they struggled to decide what to do. They suddenly understood that your life has continued. You have changed in ways they cannot fully see. You have survived days they know nothing about. You have had thoughts, disappointments, victories, lonely nights, unexpected laughter, and private breakthroughs without them standing beside you. And for the first time, they understood something painful: loving someone silently does not give you a permanent place in that person's future. That realization is part of why this goodbye has entered their mind. But there is more. Your soulmate has been hiding a truth from themselves. They kept saying they needed more time. More time to understand their emotions. More time to become ready. More time to fix circumstances. More time to find the perfect words. Yet somewhere beneath all those explanations was another truth: they were afraid that becoming completely honest with you would remove every place they could hide. As long as certain things remained unsaid, they could imagine possibilities. They could tell themselves that perhaps one day everything would align. They could protect themselves with uncertainty. But confession changes uncertainty into reality, and reality can answer back. They feared your answer. Not because they believe you are cruel. Not because they think your heart is incapable of understanding. They feared your answer because it matters too much. There are people whose rejection can hurt for an evening, and there are people whose rejection forces us to rewrite the future we secretly imagined. You became the second kind of person to them. That is why their silence became so complicated. There were nights when they nearly broke it. One of those nights matters more than you know. They were alone, surrounded by ordinary things, yet nothing about the moment felt ordinary inside them. Perhaps the room was quiet. Perhaps the world outside continued as if nothing significant was happening. But your soulmate was looking at something connected to you, a memory, a photograph, an old conversation, a saved message, or simply your name. And they suddenly felt the full weight of everything that had never been said. For a moment, all their defenses disappeared. They were not trying to be strong. They were not trying to appear detached. They were simply a human being missing someone they had never learned how to stop missing. Their fingers moved toward the possibility of reaching out. Then they stopped. And the reason they stopped is important. They remembered something. Not a dramatic betrayal. Not some terrible secret. Something quieter. They remembered a moment when they believed they had disappointed you. Maybe you never realized how deeply that moment stayed with them. Maybe you barely remember it. But they carried it differently. They replayed your tone, your silence, your expression, or the distance that followed. Somewhere along the way, they created a conclusion: perhaps you deserved someone who did not hesitate so much. Someone who knew how to love without retreating. Someone who would not make you question where you stood. And once that thought entered them, it grew. This is where their goodbye truly began. They started convincing themselves that leaving might be an act of love. They told themselves that perhaps releasing you would finally allow you to receive what they had struggled to give. They imagined disappearing quietly rather than returning with another complicated confession. They thought perhaps the kindest thing would be to stop disturbing the emotional waters and let you move forward. But their heart refused to make it simple. Every time they tried to imagine a future in which they never spoke honestly to you again, something inside them resisted. Not with dramatic signs, but with memories. Your laugh. A conversation. The way you once understood something without needing a long explanation. A moment when they felt seen. A small kindness you may have forgotten. The strange peace they associated with your presence. These memories returned whenever they tried to close the door. That is why they have not said goodbye yet. They are caught between two kinds of pain. The pain of risking honesty and the pain of wondering forever what honesty might have changed. My child, there is something you must understand about this connection. Whether two people remain together or eventually walk separate roads, meaningful love has a way of exposing what fear tries to conceal. It shows us where we have been hiding. It reveals where pride replaced communication, where assumptions replaced questions, where timing became an excuse, and where silence was mistaken for strength. Your soulmate is confronting those truths now. And you have your own truths to confront. There were moments when you wanted clarity but protected yourself by pretending you no longer cared. There were questions you wanted answered, but perhaps you became tired of being the one who always seemed to carry the emotional weight. You learned to become quieter. You stopped explaining certain feelings. You may even have told yourself that if someone truly wanted to be in your life, they would simply know what to do. Part of you still believes that. Another part of you knows human hearts are rarely so simple. People can love and still be afraid. They can care and still make mistakes. They can miss someone and still remain silent. They can want to return while believing they have lost the right to knock on the door. None of this means you must accept confusion forever. Love without honesty cannot survive on imagination alone. But understanding the difference between lack of love and lack of courage may finally explain why this story has felt unfinished. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that too. Something happened inside them when they considered saying goodbye permanently. They expected relief. They expected that making a final decision would quiet their mind. They thought that once they accepted the possibility of never returning, the emotional tension would disappear. Instead, the opposite happened. The moment they imagined never speaking to you again, memories became sharper. Things they had minimized suddenly mattered. Words they had swallowed began demanding expression. They remembered moments when you showed patience they did not properly appreciate. They remembered times when you tried to understand them while they were still struggling to understand themselves. They remembered the emotional doors you opened and the times they stood outside those doors because entering would have required vulnerability. Then came the memory they could not escape. It was something you said. Perhaps you said it directly. Perhaps the meaning was hidden inside a longer conversation. But the message was simple: you wanted truth more than perfection. They did not understand the importance of those words then. They understand now. Because perfection was exactly what they had been waiting for. The perfect timing. The perfect circumstances. The perfect version of themselves. The perfect certainty that you would respond the way they hoped. And while waiting for perfection, they allowed distance to become its own answer. Now they realize that perhaps you never needed perfection. Perhaps you needed honesty. That realization has shaken them more than you know. There is another layer heaven wants this story to reveal, because their fear of losing you is connected to something older than this relationship. Your soulmate learned somewhere in their life that attachment can become loss without warning. They learned to protect themselves before endings arrived. When something became precious, a part of them began imagining how much it would hurt to lose it. Instead of moving closer, they sometimes stepped backward. You may have experienced that as inconsistency. They experienced it as survival. But old survival patterns can become prisons when carried into new love. Your soulmate is seeing the bars now. They are realizing that the walls that once protected them have also prevented them from receiving what they wanted most. And that realization has brought them to an emotional crossroads. They can continue protecting themselves from the possibility of rejection, or they can finally risk being known. This is why the goodbye is not yet final. Because before someone truly leaves, there is often one last moment when the heart asks, have I actually done everything I could? Your soulmate cannot answer yes. That is haunting them. They know there are words you have never heard. They know there are explanations they never gave. They know you formed conclusions using incomplete information because incomplete information was all they offered. They cannot blame you for that anymore. And recently, they admitted something to themselves they had resisted for a long time. They miss you differently than they miss anyone else. This is not merely nostalgia. Nostalgia wants to revisit yesterday. What they feel makes them question tomorrow. They do not only remember what happened, they wonder what could still happen if both of you stopped letting fear speak louder than truth. Yet there is a danger in romanticizing unfinished stories, and heaven does not ask you to abandon wisdom. A meaningful connection should not require you to lose yourself. You are not being asked to chase anyone, beg anyone, or prove your worth. Your role is not to rescue someone from their own silence. Their courage is their responsibility. But your heart deserves clarity too. And clarity is moving closer. There is a reason you are hearing about the goodbye before the goodbye happens. In this fictional spiritual story, imagine heaven not as forcing two people together, but as illuminating the moment when both must choose consciously rather than react from fear. Your soulmate has reached that moment. They have considered writing something final. Not cruel. Not dramatic. A message that would sound calm on the surface while hiding an ocean beneath every sentence. They imagine telling you they hope you are happy. They imagine thanking you for what you meant to them. They imagine saying perhaps life simply wanted different things for both of you. They imagined ending with words that would give you permission to move forward. But every time they pictured sending it, one sentence remained impossible to write. I don't love you anymore. They could not write it because it was not true. And suddenly their entire goodbye became a contradiction. How do you tell someone goodbye forever when the deepest reason you are leaving is that you love them enough to fear hurting them again? That question has been following them. There was a moment when they almost deleted the message completely. Then another part of them wondered whether goodbye was simply another disguise for fear. They began asking themselves whether they were repeating the very pattern that had caused the distance in the first place. Making a decision alone instead of having an honest conversation. That realization stopped them. For now. But something else happened immediately afterward. They saw something connected to you. It could have been a photograph, a name, a place, a song title, a mutual connection, or an ordinary reminder that carried extraordinary emotional weight. Whatever it was, it brought back one specific memory they had tried not to revisit. In that memory, you were not asking them to promise forever. You were asking them to be present. And they realized how many times they had confused those two things. They had been so afraid of failing at forever that they failed to show up fully in the moment they actually had. That realization broke something open. They began remembering every time you gave them an opportunity to speak honestly. Every time you waited a little longer than you should have. Every time you sensed something beneath their silence and hoped they would trust you enough to reveal it. They saw your side of the story with a clarity they had avoided. For the first time, they stopped asking, "Why did they pull away from me?" They asked, "What did my silence make them believe?" And the answer hurt. It may have made you believe you were not important. It may have made you believe they chose something or someone else. It may have made you question whether the connection had ever been as meaningful to them as it was to you. It may have made you wonder whether you imagined the depth entirely. They finally understand that silence creates stories in the spaces where truth should have been. And now they want to correct one of those stories before it becomes permanent. But there is still something holding them back. This is the part they have told almost no one. There is a truth connected to the period when they became distant. Something was happening in their inner world that you did not fully know. They believed telling you would make them appear weak, confused, or incapable of giving you the stability you deserved. So instead of explaining, they withdrew. They expected you to understand without being told. You could not. No one could. And now, looking back, they see the unfairness of expecting you to interpret a silence they created. This hidden truth is one reason they have considered saying goodbye. They fear that if you knew everything, you might see them differently. But another possibility has begun haunting them even more. What if you would finally understand? What if the thing they were most afraid to reveal is the very thing that would explain everything? That possibility has kept the final message unsent. Tonight, figuratively standing at the edge of a decision, your soulmate is not asking whether they feel something for you. That question has already been answered in their heart. They are asking whether they have enough courage to stop hiding behind distance. And somewhere within you, another question is forming. If they finally told the truth, would you listen? Listening does not mean surrendering your boundaries. It does not mean forgetting what hurt. It does not mean promising a future before trust has been rebuilt. It simply means allowing truth to exist where assumptions once lived. Because sometimes closure is the ending. And sometimes what looks like closure becomes the first honest conversation two people have ever had. Your soulmate does not yet know which one this will be. Neither do you. That uncertainty is where the story stands now. But there is one final detail you must hear before this part ends, because it changes the meaning of everything that came before. The goodbye message they were preparing was not the only message they wrote. There was another one. A longer one. A message they never intended anyone else to see. In it, there were no careful phrases. No pretending to be unaffected. No polite farewell. No attempt to make the ending look peaceful. It contained the truth. The truth about why they pulled away. The truth about what they believed you deserved. The truth about the moment they realized they might have lost you. And buried near the end was a confession they had never allowed themselves to say aloud. They read that confession again. Then again. Their hand hovered over the screen. For several seconds, they were caught between two messages, the goodbye that would close the door forever, and the confession that could change everything. Then something happened. They deleted one of them. But, my child, it was not the message you think.